Hello, I'm Larry Makovich, Chief Power Strategist at IHS Markit. We're here at CERAWeek 2018, and with me today is Jeff Lyash, who's the President and CEO of Ontario Power Generation. Welcome to CERAWeek.
Glad to be here, Larry.
Great to have you.
It's exciting, great event.
It is a good event. Now this week, it's interesting because we get to hear all about oil, gas, and we finally get to power at the end of the week. The theme's been transition. And I think it's interesting if you can share your perspective. The Ontario power system has gone through a transition. Maybe you can talk a little bit about where the end state is. We've seen a lot of concern about affordability of energy as well as CO2 content. Maybe you can tell us where Ontario is today.
Yeah, electricity is such a vital part of Ontario's history. We still call it the hydro from Sir Adam Beck capturing the power in Niagara Falls. And so that tradition, combined with the province's focus on carbon reduction, have really played out over the last decade. We've reduced the carbon emission intensity in that system by 83%. That is primarily by expanding the use of nuclear power, expanding the hydro fleet, retiring coal, getting the gas resource working in the right mix, and adding renewables. And it's been really quite an impressive transition for Ontario, not without issues. There's a price impact to this that's had an economic impact that we're working through now. But I think it pretty well positions Ontario as we look at a future where electricity use is going to be more pervasive, not less, and where the pressure on reducing carbon intensity is going to be higher, not lower.
Well, that is what we see, I think, this idea of electrification. We had Mary Barra from GM talking about electric vehicles, but even broader about big data, machine learning, artificial intelligence, this digital world. So Ontario, you've got a lot of electricity use per person and the concern over the environment. You really do seem to be on the leading edge. Are there lessons from the transition that would have made it easier or smoother or maybe not as costly?
Yeah, certainly. I think the learning out of Ontario is be careful not to do too much too fast. Ontario rapidly retired coal. Probably could have stretched that scenario out a little farther, done it a little more cheaply. Was a very early entrant into wind and renewable contracts, long-term contracts at high prices that caused a significant increase in customer price. That drove some impact on the economy. We've actually seen a decrease in electricity consumption, and that turns itself into a price challenge for the customers. And we're just now beginning to grow into that and work our way through. So, the lessons from Ontario, I think, are you can make a transition off coal. It really does take resources like nuclear power, hydroelectric, wind, solar, biomass, storage, energy efficiency, and energy conservation all working together. But as you're doing that, keep the customer's end price in mind and pace your activities.
Right. Well, my final question is about nuclear power. Big issue in the U.S. today, revolving around this idea of resiliency. We've had the stresses of the polar vortex, and now we just recently had this bomb cyclone event where it made a big difference with regard to reliability, having a good mix of resources. So as you look to the U.S., very different kind of experience on nuclear, what's your impressions?
Well, I think you've got to recognize that a diverse portfolio of generating assets is what you need to have flexibility, resiliency, and to be able to respond to events, whether they're short-term events like this bomb cyclone or long-term trends. I think nuclear power is an important part of that, particularly if we are really focused on carbon reduction. It's disappointing to me to see some of the nuclear plants in the U.S. close. I think it's a mistake. I think we'll regret it in the long term. In contrast, I'm very pleased that we're refurbishing our nuclear plants in Ontario and extending their lives for 50 years. Right. Because I think as part of that diverse portfolio, it's going to give us the flexibility we need to be resilient.
Well, thanks. Those are great insights. And again, thanks for being here at CERAWeek.
Glad to be here, Larry.
Okay.